Thank you, and thanks to FAO for inviting me. I've got a short presentation. Before I start, I just want to brief you on my background. I was born as a small pig farmer in France. I was trained as a vet and worked in Europe, and then moved to Vietnam in 2000, and I was involved in some NGO work, pro livestock, some consultancy work, started to work with OIE as well on a short-term basis. And what I'm going to talk about is what we are especially doing over the last, since about 2 or 3 years ago, on the setup of value chains for safe animal-derived products in Vietnam. The situation where we are now is very small, so some people will consider it very small, some people will consider it big already compared to some smallholder. 2,500 layers shared by 3 farmers, 500 meat chicken per month, another by 3 other farmers, one egg packing center, a small building which is basically grading, inspecting 50,000 eggs per month. And on the right, a small-scale poultry slaughterhouse, 100 meters square, which is producing from these 3 farms about a ton of chicken meat per month. And this is going to our own food shop, which has, for the moment, less than 500 regular consumers. And also, especially the eggs are going to around 15 restaurants, hotels, and caterers in Hanoi. So both the farms, the slaughtering, the shop, and the restaurants, most of that is all in the same province. What's interesting is that despite it is a small quantity of products, it's giving employment for around 15 people. So the company staff, which is involved in the technical advice, the slaughtering, the egg packing center, the food shop, the marketing, and also the 6 farmers. What's important also is that the food shop is actually not just retailing the chicken meat and the eggs, but it's also buying and selling some other products from some partner producers from Vietnam. These are some pictures, so an example of a free-range chicken meat farm, an example of how a small-scale poultry slaughterhouse look. For some of you may know, but this kind of small building exists in Europe, in countries especially like France, England, Italy. For example, in France we have, I think, over 1,000 small farm-based poultry slaughterhouses like this. So we are just basically copying what some of the French guys have been doing. Inside the slaughterhouse, what's obviously important is to keep it clean and to have floor and walls which are white and easy to clean is important. And the last picture is about our small shop. So we're doing quality products, although many people say that we are doing organic, we never claim it is organic, because for us the challenge is basically to be safe, and I say simply safe, but truly safe. So products are in compliance with the national and provincial food safety regulations in Vietnam, and also as close as possible as we can to the OIE and Codex international standards. What's important is the permanent supervisions of all the activities from farming to retailing by our private team of veterinarians. Also that the premises are inspected by the provincial veterinary and food safety public agencies. What's important in countries like Vietnam, but in many other countries, is the fact that we are able to say that our products have antimicrobial residues that are either absent or under the maximal residues limit. And important also is the good hygiene practices in slaughtering, transport, and retailing. But again, the chemical residues is a big point for us. Other things, we have Another, maybe a marketing advantage on the animal welfare. Our farms are free range. I will talk about it a bit later, a bit more. Fair trade is important to us, not as a marketing advantage. We don't want to go for fair trade certification or stuff. It's just to make sure that we have a long-term collaboration with the farmers. I use this slide to basically say on the left and on the right what kind of egg farming system we can find in countries like Vietnam, but in many other countries. I think you can still find the same systems in countries like France almost, from very intensive in cage layers to layers on the floor but inside, to free range layers and to backyard layers, and the same for meat. And usually, I think in Asia, for technical people and policy makers, big is safe, and to be safe you have to be big. And usually at the same time for consumers and for people working in restaurants, it is kind of the opposite. They prefer to, well, they are not convinced that big is safe. And what I want to say that basically any of this farming system can produce safe meat or egg, and any of this farming system can produce unsafe meat or egg. So it's different to sometimes hear the word that smallholders are not able to produce safe animal products, and I strongly disagree with that. In terms of prices, our free range chicken are sold at $5 per kilo carcass for restaurants, $7 for the consumers. So it's double price compared to a rapid growth broiler, or what is called an industrial broiler. Eggs, again, there is a big price difference. Again, that's also maybe because we are at the beginning. Well, let's say that for the difference between free-range poultry and industrial poultry is usually very high in Europe or in other countries. If we were doing not free-range but safe products, the difference would not be as high. The high difference may also be due to the fact that we are still small and starting. In the notes, for me, free-range is not essential obviously not essential from a food safety point of view, but consumers have such a bad image of intensive livestock farming, and therefore it is difficult to have a premium price if you're farming industrial poultry. What's important as well for people who want to go into this kind of business is to know that in many parts of the world, a lot of the retailers, caterers, hotels are selecting their products or their suppliers not so much on the sanitary quality of the product, but a lot first on taste, texture, on the cost, purchasing cost, obviously on the regularity of supply, but also on the under the table envelopes, which is a big constraint for people who are working on quality. An important point for us as well, that when we started that 2 years ago, at the beginning 90% of our customers were foreigners in Hanoi. Now it's going to only 50% because the quantity is increasing, but the share of Vietnamese consumers is increasing faster, and we expect that in 2 or 5 more years it will be mainly Vietnamese consumers. Initial investment, these are very estimate figures. It really depends on each company, but just I think it's easier to remember. I put about $15,000 for each of these items. The small scale poultry slaughterhouse is $15,000. It's about a third for the building, a third for the small equipment, and a third for a small chilling room. If you look, obviously it's a big or small investment, $75,000. but it's an investment to have the complete value chain from farm to the shop. So it's like if you need to separate it into the three main things: the farming, the harvesting, and the marketing. And if you put it down to per egg or per kilo, it is not so much, again considering that we are still with quite small quantities. What's important to remember as well is that investment in infrastructure, farm buildings, slaughterhouse, chilling equipment, transportation is important, but investment in human resources is as important, if not more. Recommendations to policymakers, it's quite simple. For me, it's really to understand and to listen to the key constraints of the small farmers and entrepreneurs. For me, it's important for any country or any regions who wants to really have a clear strategy for the future and a clear action plan for the future on livestock development is first to conduct a good situational analysis, and that kind of document should be done really in consultation with the producers. The second thing is, and if governments would do just one thing, it would be that the food safety regulations are adequate, that they are as close as possible to OIE and Codex standards, but that they stay implementable. And I think in most cases the OIE and the Codex standards are good for that they are not asking for too much compared to legislation that is in some developed countries. Obviously, and again that's obvious, for policymakers to ensure that the support packages are available for farmers and entrepreneurs. It's again about credit, about technical assistance. Again, that's very obvious, but it's not always the case. For me, the application of that kind of model is relevant in many countries. Again, what we are doing in Vietnam is something that some entrepreneurs have started to do in France or in other places in Europe just 10 years ago. So it's not, it's something applicable for both developing and developed countries. Just, and that's my final slide. For your information, we are working on a new website which will be called goodpracticespoultry.org. It should be available within the coming weeks or months. It's with support from USAID, a project in West Africa. And the idea is to put on the same website a number of relevant literature going from strategic planning for poultry, including breeding flocks, hatcheries, egg production, meat production, slaughtering, marketing, etc. And it's based on what we have done over the last 5 years, and it's basically to avoid public agencies or other entrepreneurs to have to do the same literature searching and experience searching that we've been doing. Thank you.